Consider it all joy when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. James chapter 1, verse 2. Let's talk about that for a second. Let's skip over the first part because we'll come back to it. But knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. So when we think about the testing of our faith, it doesn't just have to be, it is a very spiritual principle, but it's really a principle of life, isn't it? The testing of anything is how the strength is developed, correct? Like if you participated in a sport ever and you had to train, you had to do, I remember I played basketball and I hated running. I absolutely despised running. So you had to run, tons and suicides and, it was just drudgery to me. I hated it. But as I realized it was developing the endurance, it made playing the game a lot more fun because now I had the wind to enable me to do it, right? So I was able to run back and forth up and down the court much more easily than if I hadn't done all of those dreaded suicides. So it was that testing that produced endurance. So let's go back to the beginning of the verse. Consider it all joy when you encounter various trials. Not if, but when. We all have them. Stuff happens, right? Things don't work the way they're supposed to work. In this training class that I'm taking, a lot of times there's all kinds of technical things that happen and it's like, or maybe you don't understand a concept and you can't get anybody to explain it to you in a way that makes sense and you're trying to figure it out and the light bulb just hasn't gone on and it's very frustrating. But that process is what is building up in you the endurance that you're going to need, the endurance that I'm going to need. So it's that trial process is what develops the strength. I was in the weightlifting club in college. I loved lifting weights. The process of lifting weights, you do repetitions in sets, right? So you try to increase either the number of repetitions or the amount of weight, depending upon if your goal is to develop overall strength or to build muscle mass. So that process of lifting the weights produces a bit of soreness, right? That soreness is how your muscles are growing and building. You don't want to do it to excess, obviously, but it is that testing. You are testing your muscles to do more than they had done the last time you pressed those weights, whether it's leg presses, arm presses, military press, bench press, whatever. So considering it all joy when you encounter various trials. There's all different kinds of trials that we face, right? We face everything from the smallest little nitnoid, pesky thing like you can't, you keep hitting red lights the whole way into work, or somebody takes the best parking spot all the time, or just little annoyances and nuisances. That there are various trials, and then there are much bigger trials. You've been given a debilitating, catastrophic illness or injury that has wreaked havoc in your life, or a loved one has been given a very bad diagnosis or even died, or a child has made choices that has caused them intense pain, and in turn that causes you pain. All different kinds of trials. But we're supposed to consider joy when we encounter them because we know that the testing of our faith, the process by which we work through those trials, is how we develop our endurance and our character. So that applies not just to our spiritual life, but it applies to every part of our life. It applies to us when we're taking classes, raising a family, training dogs, whatever it is. Tests produce endurance. When a person who works with precious metals is trying to purify the metal, what do? They mix it with chemicals and they apply incredible amounts of heat. And they keep doing that over and over and over again. And in that process, the impurities rise to the surface, and the person who is working with the metal then can skim those impurities off, and the actual metal itself becomes more pure because of the firing process. It's called the refiner's fire. So how do they know when the refiner is done firing that the metal is pure? The answer is when he can see his reflection in it, which is kind of a cool image. So anyways, that was my thought this evening. I was just musing on James 1:2, having myself considered many various trials in my life, and I'm sure with many more to come. But every time, I have to remember, God has brought me safe thus far, and He will lead me home. So if you're encountering trials in your life right now, hang on. Trust. Work through it. Allow them to develop that endurance in you and to build that character in you, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. I hope you find that to be encouraging today, and that it reminds you of how to get through the tough times. Consider it all joy, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. I hope that your faith is growing on a daily basis, and that you are growing as a person, and that every day you are a little bit better than you were the day before. That's my prayer for myself, and I hope it is for you as well. Take care, and God bless.